One such Democratic candidate is running for a seat in New York's 29th Congressional District, Eric Massa. Eric spent 24 years as a naval officer, now retired commander. In 2005, he founded the Veterans for a Secure America. It's a group of vets running for Congress as Democrats, and he joins us tonight out of Manhattan. Eric, I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me in studio today, and thank you for the invitation to join you in New York City.
Well, first of all, let me ask you, when did you decide to run, and how much of it was attached to what's going on in Iraq?
Well, I actually made my declaration to run for Congress the day after President Bush was reelected.
Eric, I know by most counts as many as 72 veterans, do I have that right? Not just obviously from Iraq, but going back to even Vietnam. They're running all as Democrats here, and they're loosely titled a band of brothers, correct?
That is correct. You know, in the last election cycle, there were 3 or 4 Democrats who were veterans who ran for the House of Representatives. This year, there are more than 70. And of those 70 or so, only 1 was recruited. And these are all men and women from Vietnam. In my case, it was Beirut, Desert Storm, and Bosnia, and some 14 or 15 returning veterans from Afghanistan and Iraq who are standing up based on their experience to take the flag out of Karl Rove's hands and to tell President George W. Bush he can no longer use our military as a backdrop for his political gambits. The mission is not accomplished, and we need real leadership. Now is a time for change.
You know, I've spent, Eric, some time with Max Cleland over the years, and he was even saying a few years ago to expect more of this. How coordinated is this band of brothers, and how much do you run the risk that you guys will be labeled a one-trick pony here if all you're doing is talking about the military?
Well, as you can tell, I started off not talking about the military and not talking about Iraq, because my passion is health care. And of these more than 70 candidates, we bring an incredible range of issues and experiences to the table. But we all are veterans. And Senator Max Cleland is not only a personal friend, he's also a great American hero. And to him, we all owe a great debt for pioneering a great deal of this. We are loosely assembled. There is no official chain of command. No one recruited us. There is no one telling us what to say. But we all believe deeply and passionately in the future of this country, and we know that this nation is terribly off course.
Eric, I'm curious. We've seen obviously a half a dozen generals come out here, if all but calling for Rumsfeld's resignation, or at least being very critical about how the campaign's been waged in Iraq. How much of active military, if you had to guess, typically they're a conservative, political bloc here by and large, how many would vote for a change here, at least with some of the war planners, you think?
Well, having been a naval officer for most of my lives, I'd first like to tell you that, our military represents the broad spectrum of political thinking in this nation. Officers and enlisted personnel come from Middle America, they come from California and New York, from upper class, middle class, lower class families economically, and they represent, in as much as any other institution does, a broad range of political thinking. I salute the generals who have come out of retirement. I know many of them personally. And the band of brothers, some 40 of us, have already signed a petition to come to their reinforcement and demand that Secretary Rumsfeld resign today. His leadership in the Department of Defense has been nothing short of a disaster for our active duty military. And I think you're seeing, as these very senior officers come out of retirement, to speak their minds freely in an open democratic system, the in-depth concern we have about the future of our foreign policy and the fact that our domestic policies are just off course. So I'm proud to stand with them anytime, anywhere.
Last thing from me, Eric, you don't certainly need advice, but I will tell you, the treatment of our vets at the VA facilities, for folks who don't know, regardless of politics, is an outright shame. And I would hope here, as part of not just talking about the war, we're also talking about the treatment of veterans when they come back. And I would imagine that's going to resonate with voters. Have you found that on the trail?
Oh, absolutely. And, I have a disproportionately high number of veterans in my district, the very rural 29th Congressional District, Corning, New York, Elmira, Olean, suburbs of Rochester, with some 14% of the population who are veterans. We need now to fulfill the promise of service, and no one will support the troops more than the troops. We are the troops, and we're going to bring a higher standard of leadership to the United States Congress with the help of average working Americans as we reach out to them to help us fund our campaigns, to give us the encouragement to move forward, and to change the fundamental dynamics of politics in Washington. This is no longer business as usual. This is too important. It's time to put real leaders back in Washington, D.C., get some adults down in Washington.
All right, Eric. Eric Massa, a name to keep an eye on. I appreciate a few minutes. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me in studio today, and God bless.